Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm pleased to be with you in this course, Public Finance, which is one of the most interesting courses in economics. I think that we will be able to study maybe 9 to 10 chapters. The first chapter will be an introduction to the public finance, which includes some definitions, terms related to the public finance, like the public goods, the market failure, and something related to the market efficiency and the government, the needs or the justification for the government intervention in the market. Okay? And in chapter 2, we will study something related to the social efficiency by using indifference curve and the budget lines, as well as income and substitution effects. Then we will go to an important issue, important topic, which is the Gini coefficient and the equity of income distribution. In chapter 3, we have a topic, an important topic, which is the externalities. In this chapter, we will study the negative externalities of production, consumption, positive externalities of production and consumptions, and we will determine the social optimality. Okay? In chapter 4, we will study the government expenditures, and then we will study the taxation policies. In chapter 6, maybe the taxes and the government intervention. And in chapter 7, we will study the tax incidence and tax burden. Chapter 8 and 9, we will focus on the Palestinian public finance. Okay? The main reference for this course is the public finance and public policy, fourth edition, for Jonathan Grover he's a professor at the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Okay? One of the main strongest books I have, references I have went through. So let's go to the introduction to the public finance. What is the public finance? The public finance is about the taxing and spending activities of the government. That's it. In this course, we will study the government intervention in the market, or the taxes and subsidies, the government policies towards spending, what are the main sources of government revenues and spending. How can the government allocate the budget according to different sources or sectors of economy: health, education, national defense, and etc. Okay? Let's go to something else. We have 4 questions to be answered while studying the public finance. These questions are, as you see, when should the government intervene in the economy? And how might the government intervene, as well as what are the consequences and effects of the government intervention in the economy? Suppose that the government decided to impose or set taxes. What are the effects of the direct effects and the indirect effects of the government policies towards such decision by maybe increasing taxes? As you see in the current situation in Palestine here, maybe 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago, the government decided to impose or to increase or to impose, return the taxes, the value-added taxes. This decision has or had some impacts on the telecommunication services, Jawal and Al-Wataniya, and you feel that as a consumers. Okay? Now, we have to answer these questions according to while studying the public finance. Okay? Let's go to some definitions related to the public finance. Here, the main question: when should the government intervene in the economy? The government should intervene in the economy when there is an inefficiency or the market failure, when the marginal social, the social benefits doesn't equal the social cost or the private. Okay? Tamam? The market failure means we have a full chapter related to the market failure, so just you have to understand that the market failure means that the economy is not good. Okay? Sometimes maybe someone consume or produce, let us talk about a factor produces products that have negative impacts on the economy. In this case, we can say that there is an inefficiency. Inefficiency occurs sometimes when there is an excess supply of goods or excess demand. So the government should intervene by maybe buying the overproduction. Sometimes provides the consumers or encourage the consumers to buy something. Okay, so the government intervene here to internalize the situation. Okay, let's go to maybe by imposing taxes or providing subsidies for maybe sometimes for the consumer, sometimes for the producer, sometimes it imposes taxes on the consumer, sometimes on the producer. This depends on the case itself. Okay? Where should the government intervene? Redistribution of income. The government can or sometimes decides to reallocate income to reach the equality or the equity in distribution of income. So it can take or shift resources from some group to other groups to reach the equity in distribution of income. This is one of the main justifications for the government intervention. Okay? How might the government intervene in the economy? The government can intervene by two tools: taxes or subsidies. And here look at the definition, which raises the taxes, raises the prices for private sales or purchase of goods that are overproduced. To understand the idea here, let us assume that we have the following situation. Quantity and prices. The equilibrium occurs when demand intersects supply curve. And let us assume here that the equilibrium is here, E. And we have an overproduction of cigarettes in the country. You know that cigarettes create or leads to create some problems, some diseases like cancer. And we have an overconsumption of such a product in the country. So we have an overproduction. Suppose that the country produces 1,000 units or 100,000 units of cigarettes in the country, and the price equals 7 shekels. Okay? As we have an overproduction of this good and this product creates some problems for the community, the government should intervene maybe to decrease the quantity consumed of cigarette or the quantity smoked of cigarettes by imposing taxes. So let us assume that the government decided to eliminate the number or the size of smoking in the country, so it should increase the taxes, or yes, increase the tax rate on cigarettes. Increasing taxes. Tax is an indirect cost. So this leads to increasing the cost of production for cigarettes, increasing the cost of production for cigarettes. Increasing the cost of production for cigarettes leads to what? Decreasing the profits for the producers. this leads to a decreasing or decreasing the profit. At the same time, as the cost of production increases, the ability to produce will decline or decrease. So here we have a decreasing in the ability to produce of cigarettes, right? At the same time, as the profit goes down, this or the producer will decide to decrease their production. So the willingness to produce will decline. This leads to a decreasing the willingness or desire to produce more cigarettes because the profits goes down. The willingness to produce. So, as the ability to produce goes down, at the same time, the willingness to produce goes down, what will happen? Supply goes down because supply of cigarettes here is or equals ability to produce plus willingness to produce. As these two things go down or went down, supply of cigarettes, this leads to a decreasing supply of cigarettes. So, supply curve, this is the supply for cigarettes, which is hard for the community, and we have over smoking in the country. So this is S1, D1. Imposing taxes means supply will decline, so the supply curve shifts left. All right, so here we have a decreasing in supply, so supply curve shifts left. S2. What will happen? What is the main effect of a decreasing in supply? As you see here, the prices, or we have a new equilibrium point, E2, this is E1, E2, the price of cigarettes goes up. Okay, so here we have an increase in the price of cigarettes. Let us assume that the price per pack of cigarettes equals 13 shekels instead of 7. The quantity consumed or purchased, the purchase of cigarettes will go down as well. So let us assume it was or becomes 50,000 units of cigarettes. And you see, the country feels or felt that there was a market failure. Market failure means we have an overproduction of cigarettes and overconsumption of cigarettes, which is really hard for the community. So this here we have an inefficiency, or sorry, inefficiency and market failure, because we have an overproduction and overconsumption of cigarettes. So to correct the situation, the government decided to impose or to increase the tax rate of cigarettes. This leads to a movement or a shifting of supply curve. The prices goes up, and at this point, the country or the government feels that this quantity of cigarettes must be a changes in, or sorry, in exchange in the country, because this quantity is or achieves the market efficiency. Okay, so the most optimal or the optimal point for consumption or for smoking in this country, after calculations, the government decided it is 50,000, not 100,000. So the government intervened here. The government intervention here is to correct the situation, to internalize the situation by imposing taxes. So what will happen here, as you see, through taxes, which raise the prices, and the quantity goes down, and we correct the market failure problem and reach to the efficiency. Okay? Another example or another point. The government can intervene in the market by providing subsidies for the producers to produce more. Sometimes the government feels that we have a good product and it has a positive impact for the community, but we have an underproduction of this product and we have a shortage supply for this product at the local market. So there's an inefficiency or we have a market failure. So to maximize the benefits, we have to encourage the producers to produce more and more to reach the market efficiency or the social optimality or the social efficiency. To reach the social efficiency or the community efficiency, we have to encourage them to produce more to treat the excess supply, the excess or the shortage supply in the country. So let's take another example here to explain the idea of subsidies and its impacts on the economy and the market, to internalize the market failure. Let us assume that we have the following example related to vaccination and medications of some disease in the country. إن مرض موجود بالبلد وبدنا نعمل vaccination and medications and the number of demand one, S1, E1, price one, Q1, Q and prices. The number of people who are vaccinated or medicated equals 1 or 200,000 person in the country, and the government tries or will try to encourage them for vaccination, to add more people, to encourage more people to vaccinate. So it has two alternatives. Might be providing subsidies for the factors who produce or the business who produce such drugs for vaccination, or it can encourage the consumers to consume or to go for vaccination. So let us assume that the government decided to provide subsidies for the producer of such product by increasing or providing them, or by subsidizing them. Providing subsidies for the producers leads to increasing their profits. This will encourage them or to reduce the cost production. The opposite case for taxes is the subsidy. Increasing subsidies means that the cost of production goes down. Hence, the profits actually will go up. The ability to produce will go up, and the willingness to produce as well will go up. Then supply will go up. So we have a rightward shifting in supply curve. This leads to a decrease in the prices of drugs for such vaccination, and the number of people in the country who are engaged in the vaccination increase as well. All right? So let us assume that the number becomes 300,000 people in the country who are vaccinated. This is the efficient point. If the situation remains at this point, 200,000, we have a market failure. Okay? So the market failure occurs when there is no social optimality. So the social optimality occurs at this point here. which has treated by the government role, the government by subsidizing or sometimes imposing taxes on different bundles of goods. So let's go to another thing. Here we are talking about how might the government intervene by maybe restrict or mandate private sales. Sometimes the government buys the products directly from the sellers from the country if there is an overproduction. Sometimes the government decides to buy the overproduction. Sometimes the government tries to encourage the consumers to buy more and more. We have public provision. Sometimes the government tries to encourage the producers to produce more. Sometimes to buy. These are the type. What are the effects of alternative interventions? The effects of alternative interventions of the government are, we have two effects: direct effect or direct effects and indirect effects. To understand the idea well, let's come back quickly to something in the macroeconomics. Let us assume that the government increase taxes or increase its spending. Now when we talk about the public finance, we are talking about the government spending on different sectors or taxes. Government spending or taxes. Let us assume that the government decided to increase its spending. Increasing G. G is the government spending. What will happen to the economy? If you remember, in the macroeconomics, aggregate expenditures or aggregate demand equals consumption plus investment plus G plus export minus imports. You understand the idea? Do you remember? Increasing the government spending or cut taxes. Another two. Increasing G, it's control factor. The government can control the government spending. What will happen to the aggregate expenditure? Increase. Right? So the direct effect of the government spending here is increasing the aggregate demand. As the aggregate demand or increasing G here leads to increasing the aggregate expenditures. Increasing the aggregate expenditure. Aggregate expenditure is the aggregate demand. Alright? So the aggregate demand for goods and services increased. What will happen to if the aggregate demand increases? We have different effects or many effects. Increasing the overall price levels, which is inflation. At the same time, as the aggregate demand for goods increase, the aggregate output increase as well. To increase our production. Why? This is the GDP. Increasing the GDP means that we need more worker to produce. All right? We need labor. We need more additional workers to produce. So the labor demand increase. Here we're talking about the cycle from market to another. Labor demand increases, so the wages increases. As the labor demand increases, the employment increases as well. And unemployment goes down. So, what do you see? The government use a tool, which is the government spending, increasing the government spending, or decrease taxes or cut taxes. This has an impact on the economy by, we have a indirect effects. We can say in this stage we are talking about a direct effect. If we continue, complete the cycle here, indirect effects. Actually, in the long term, we have other effects on the money market as well. Increasing the income leads to increasing the money demand for transaction, and then the interest rate goes up, and the private investment goes down. And here we're talking about a cycle. We have the government decided to use a tool to internalize the situation, to correct the situation in the economy. This has impacts, direct effects and indirect effects. Okay? This is the idea. Political economy. The size and the growth of the government. طبعا هنا بنحكي في ثواني. I will present something related to the public finance, like the government spending, taxes, deficits, and debts. As you see here, a time series for spending and taxes and debts for the U.S. economy. That's not necessary, just for a quick presentation, you know. Here's, you see, for the government, the American government spending, distribution of spending. As you see in this graph, in the pie chart, this in 1960, the U.S. government was spending about 90% out of this budget on the national defense. Allocation on health, as you see, just 3%. On education, employment, you know, education and welfare, it was 3.9. Let's go for 2004, you know, the spending, the government spending on national defense went down. Health took larger share of the budget, and you see, I think it was, had become, there's an improvement in the allocation of the government revenue taxes. Now, let's go to the public, the distribution of spending, something related to the public goods. We have a full chapter related to the public goods, but you have to understand something important just to know the idea or the concept of public goods. How can we know that, or who can give me an example of the public goods or public service? Who have an example for a public goods or public services? National defense, for example. We have two criteria to say that this product or this good is public good. Non-excludable and non-rival. Non-excludable means cannot exclude people from enjoying the benefits even if they don't pay. Even if you don't pay, you can benefit from this product. Like the national defense. مين مش مستفيد من الشرطة عندنا؟ الكل مستفيد، صح؟ السكيورتي والناشونال مظبوط ولا لا؟ national defense فعليا هذا. Even if you don't pay, you benefit. The other condition for the or to say this product is or this good is a public good, shared consumption non-rivalry. Non-rivalry means one person's consumption of a good does not reduce the usefulness of other. واحد استهلك إشي بأثرش على استهلاك التانيين. like the city park. واحد راح قاعد في حديقة معينة ما أثرش على استهلاك غيره، وفي شيء اسمه ما فيش مزاحمة، عشان هيك بسموها shared consumption. تمام. there is no competition. In the private goods, no. If you want to a restaurant, you buy to buy something, you have to pay. And if you bought a slice pizza, you will prevent someone else to buy it. So the private goods should be excludable and rival. The public goods, non-excludable, non-rival. Sometimes you might find a product which is non-excludable rival, or rival or an excludable non-rival, non-excludable rival, and maybe excludable rival. We have a full chapter related to this point, so we have to present an idea about the public finance. Here we have a distribution of resources of the government revenue resources, income in 1990. This is just for the U.S. government. In 1990, the income tax was the main sources of government revenue. And here we excess taxes, corporate profits or corporate taxes, and per taxes. And here in 2005, this is just a comparison between the main sources of government revenues. So let's go to another thing. Here, just we present the government spending on social security, on education, healthcare programs. That's it. This is the first chapter. Okay. Let's go to chapter 2, which is the income and substitution effects and the social optimality or the social efficiency. Okay? Before going to the income and substitution effect, we have to come back quickly to the indifference curve and the budget line and determine how can the consumer reach to the equilibrium, or how can the equilibrium, or how can the consumer maximizes his benefits or his utility when he consumes different bundles of goods. The consumer equilibrium, as you studied in the principles of microeconomics, the consumer equilibrium occurs when the indifference curve, which represents the total utility, equals or tangent the budget line, which represents the ability of the consumer to buy different bundles of goods. Okay? So let's come back quickly to the indifference curve. To understand the idea of the consumer equilibrium and then the income and substitution effect, let us assume that we have a consumer, and this consumer consumes two bundles of goods, orange and banana. We are talking about a rational consumer who consumes different bundles of goods, or two goods, orange and apple, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And let us assume that this consumer consumes 1 kilogram of orange, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And at the same time, he can consume 100 kilogram of apple, buy 100 kilogram of apple, 80, sacrifice 20, sacrifice 15, 65, 10, 55, 5, 50, 3, 47, 2, 45, 1, 44. And let us assume that the different combinations or different group of these bundles give the consumer the same total benefits or the total utility. Let us assume that this consumer consumes 1 orange and 100 apple, and this combination or this group gives him the total utility of 100 units. According to our assumption, we will try to say that the total utility or the total benefits here is measurable. Actually, we cannot measure the total benefits or the total utility, but we can say there is a benefit. No one can deny that when you eat orange and apple, you don't have a benefit. Actually, there is a benefit, and according to our assumption, according to our hypothesis, we can say that, or we assume that this a point or the total utility can be measurable, can be measured by 100 units, and the group 2 gives him the same total benefits or the same total utility, and that if he consumed additional one, when he added 1 more unit of orange X, Y, quantum X, quantum Y, adding 1 more unit of X, he has to sacrifice units of Y and keep the same total utility. Adding 1 more unit, sacrifice 10 units, he keeps the same total utility and the same total benefits. What do you see? The different combinations or different groups here give the consumer the same total utility, but let's come back to follow up the cases, to check the cases. When he consumes 1 and 100, this group gives him 100 utils. Adding 1 more unit, he sacrificed how many units? 20. The marginal rate of substitution. It's called the marginal rate of substitution. Adding 1 more unit, he sacrificed, 15. Adding 1 more unit, 10. Sacrifice 10. So what do you see? The sacrifice is decreasing. In economy, this is called the marginal rate of substitution, or the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. تمام؟ هذا اسمه هيك the marginal rate of substitution. معدل الإحلال الحدي. بنعمل substitution لسلعة محل سلعة ثانية to keep the same total utility or the same total benefits. So the marginal rate of substitution equals marginal rate of substitution, not transformation, equals delta Q Y over delta Q X, the change in quantity of Y over the quantity, change in quantity of X in the absolute value. But it's always negative, but I take the absolute value. For the first case, 80 minus 100 over 2 minus 1. 80, the absolute value for the first case, and the absolute value 80 minus 100 over 2 minus 1. And the absolute value minus 20 over 1 equals 20. This is the marginal rate of substitution, 80. It's always negative because it represents, 20, yes. Because it represents the negative slope of the indifference curve that will be derived here. And then 15, 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. Here we have the law of diminishing margin or decreasing the marginal rate of substitution. Let's draw or derive the indifference curve. And then we will go to the budget line and determine the consumer equilibrium, and then we'll go to the income and substitution effect. Let's draw or derive. This is QX on the horizontal axis and equal to Y on the vertical axis. X 1, 2, 3, 5 to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in the vertical axis, from 44 to 100, we can classify it as 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. The first point, A, 1 and 100. 1 and 100. This is point A. 2 and 80. This is point B. C, 3 and 65. 3 and 65 may be here. D, 5 and 50. 4, 55. D, E, 5 and 50. Then 6 and 47. D, E, F, 44. Yeah. Let's connect these points together. This is the indifference curve. I see. So the indifference curve is or represents the different combinations, the different groups of two goods, X and Y, that give the consumer the same total satisfaction, the same total benefits, the same total utility. Okay? So, any point lies along this curve gives the consumer the same total benefits, the same total utility. Okay? I think that we have finished. يعطيكم العافية. المرة الجاية بنكمل إن شاء الله.